Do the watchers laugh too?
First major project ever made by Yoko Taro as a writer, and prelude to what's coming after. Drakengard is an action RPG where tragedy and disturbing characters go hand in hand. A game sometimes frustrating due to how repetitive it is, but that sticks in your head with the thematics it approaches. Here, we'll see all the most important moments of the game, and discuss the motives and reasoning of all the characters, so you get to feel and understand what Drakengard is really like. The game takes place in ancient times, where dragons still roam upon the earth. There, two factions are waging war, the Union and the Empire. The Union is currently protecting the goddess that keeps the harmony of the world in balance. But recently the Empire grew stronger, much stronger. Nothing seems to be able to stop them, and they are now attacking the Union's most important position, a castle, made to safeguard the goddess against any foe. If the goddess were to fall, the world will turn to chaos.
It begins.
Pretty eye.
We'll be playing as Kaim, a high-ranking knight of the Union, prince of a small kingdom called Caerleon, and brother of the goddess Furiae. Kaim lost his parents to the Empire a few years earlier. Now, Furiae is everything he has left, that and the desire of revenge he harbors in his heart. When Kaim sees an Empire soldier burn an Union flag inside the castle, he is hit with a sudden realization that the Empire might have got too close to his sister while he was busy fighting. As we could see a few seconds ago, Kaim has been wounded in the back by an enemy soldier, though it doesn't seem to stop him from being able to run and fight freely. Our goal is now to come back to the castle and defend Furiae from the Empire. We'll kill a few hundreds enemies on our way there, as leveling up makes the game easier, and we're gonna need it for some incoming chapters, but for now, nothing too bad. I would even call the game enjoyable so far. The enemies are nothing special, and spamming our fire magic allows us to farm them without any problem. It's very similar to what a Musou would be. Outside of the camera, that is much worse. Obviously the game offers the possibility to manually move the camera with the right stick. The only problem is that the camera is relatively slow to move, and always come back to its default position to see what is in front of our character. The camera also completely stops moving whenever we are using the attack buttons, which often lead us to have dead angles in fights. So basically, to move the camera in the most effective way, we have to make our character face the danger, which isn't hard to do, but then we have to wait for the camera to slowly put itself back in place before starting our attack string. That's simply not realistically feasible. Since Drakengard was inspired by Dynasty Warriors 2, there is another way to quickly move the camera, a much better one, but I regret to tell you that I dropped the ball heavily there. In Dynasty Warriors 2, if I wanted to move the camera, I'd simply make my character face whatever direction I want, and then press the guard button to center the camera in front of me very quickly. Drakengard kind of does that, but the guard button has two uses. It also features a target locking system, and while it might sound good on paper, That locking system is the reason that it is so clunky. It will always lock the closest target, and while it isn't a big deal against those enemies, because they are relatively slow and do not deal a lot of damage, it will eventually become a bigger problem later on. Now back to save the goddess. After killing the guards protecting the door, we'll enter the Castle Bailey, where the Empire captured the dragon.
A dragon!
Kill me if you desire, but you can never dirty my soul, wretched human.
Tell me, do you still want to live, dragon?
What?
A pact! There's no other way!
What makes you worthy of a pact with me?
Worthy or not, I wish to live. Despise me if you will, but I shall not die! Your answer! A pact or death!
Left there to die, grounded by chains. Despite Kaim's hatred toward dragons, as the Black Dragon is responsible for the death of both his parents, he left the Red Dragon two choices, a pact with him or death. You see, Kaim's wound from earlier wasn't as small as we thought it was, and Kaim has been bleeding profusely for now several minutes. Death isn't far away for both of them. Only a pact linking both their souls together can save them. Until the dragon makes its decision, we'll have to protect it against waves of enemies.
Now, your answer.
A pact or death? We are united by our need to live.
Well,
Yes, a pact.
Each character in Drakengard has what I would call a major flaw. None of them is truly innocent. That dragon isn't there for no reason. She was trying to kill soldiers from the Empire before being injured. Truth be told, the Red Dragon hates humans. She despises them more than anything due to the atrocities they commit. And if she's gonna help us, it's only because her life depends on it. Pact partners cannot allow each other to die, as their lives are now linked together. I'll also assume the Red Dragon is female, due to her voice in English, but I do think her gender is currently unknown, as the Japanese voice is male. Now, stronger than ever, due to the pact, we'll ride our new ally to fight and stop the attack from the sky. Drakengard features a few different gameplays. We've seen the ground gameplay before, similar, but not identical to what Dynasty Warriors 2 did. But now that we're in the sky, the game will play more like a Panzer Dragoon. And I have to say that this is probably the best out of the 4 different ways the game will be played. It is pretty simple. We can either spit a big fireball right in the middle of the cursor, or keep the button pushed to lock on many enemies and spit smaller targeted fireball on them. The number of fireballs we can fire at once depend on the Red Dragon. At first we can only breath 4 of them, but later on the Red Dragon will evolve and be allowed to fire up to 8 fireballs at the same time toward the end of the game. After killing a bunch of enemies, the magic attack will become available. This attack fire auto-targeted lasers everywhere and allow us to reduce significantly the amount of enemies on screen. Defensively, we have the possibility to dash on either direction to try to avoid the enemy's attacks, or we can simply try to gain speed to reposition ourselves. It is pretty simplistic and never get much more complicated than that, but even with simple mechanics, Drakengard remain able to offer us a challenge on boss fights. These missions remain the most fun I've had with the game. The Red Dragon feels powerful. Each time we'll press the magic button, we'll slay enemies by the dozen. It is satisfying, and that's maybe the only satisfying thing, gameplay-wise, that we'll find in Drakengard. Now that we are done clearing the sky out of those vermins, we'll come back to the castle, where our army needs our help. We'll now have all the tools to fight on the ground, so I'll be able to talk about the gameplay. Ground gameplay can be either played as a hack and slash, or on top of the Red Dragon. But to be perfectly honest, the Red Dragon is mostly there to help reduce the number of enemies, or move around faster, as getting hit twice by archers will dismount us. We can easily mount it again, but honestly it's not even worth the hassle. This is the moment where I started to understand that I was about to eat shit, even though I still remained hopeful that something changed. It did not, and it became even worse later on. For the record, I've played the game on medium difficulty, which is the highest out of the 2 difficulties the game has to offer. Maybe it differs if you play the game on easy, I do not know. So back to where we left off. This mission's objective is to defend the castle against troops cornering it. Lots of troops cornering it. The Red Dragon's area of effect, speed, and ability to fly over the battlefield will be perfect to help us there. The problem, you probably can see it now. It takes more than 1 fireball to kill any enemy, and the dragon is much too quick, even if you slow down. So we have 2 choices. Either we turn back and finish off the enemies we just failed to kill, or we simply fly over everyone, wound them, and then finish them off later. The first choice worked, but it's clunky, as turning back too early will make you miss your fireball. You need to be far away enough to land that fireball, and it's really frustrating. If you miss, you can try again until you succeed, or until an archer hits you twice. The second choice simply doesn't work though. Going too far away from any wounded soldier simply heal them back to full health. To add to this, the dragon controls like a tank and doesn't move easily. We can still dodge like we did in the sky, but it's not easy to position yourself well to hit the enemy you desire. The possibility for the dragon to use its magic is also still there, but the laser apocalypse is gone. It is replaced by a meteor shower on ground battles, and while not completely useless, it does much less damage and have a pretty short range. And look, I'm not calling this unplayable or impossible, that mission is actually still pretty easy so far. I'm simply saying that this part of the game is just not fun, can be frustrating, and is especially time consuming due to poor mechanics. You can very well not use a dragon here if you desire, it's optional, but it's even slower fighting with Kaim, as the number of enemies to slay here is quite high. We are not done opening the can of worms yet, we'll have better surprises later on. The Red Dragon is obviously only available on open fields, so for the next mission inside the castle, we won't have access to her. Before that though, we'll see our third gameplay, isometric hack and slash. We'll see it rarely and very often for a short period of time. It is never really hard, enemies there are much easier to kill, and while the usual ground gameplay allows us to swap freely between 8 equipped weapons, this one will have us fight exclusively with Kaim's sword. Other than that, it plays the same as ground gameplay, without access to the dragon. Nothing else to say about it really. It's actually pretty good, but also quite simplistic. As we're about to enter the castle, we witness the price that Kaim had to pay for the pact with the Red Dragon, his voice. Kaim can no longer talk. The Red Dragon will have to talk for both of them, as she can communicate with him through their link, that I suppose give them some sort of telepathy. Inside the castle, we'll have to reach Furiae before the Empire does, to protect her. That mission is actually not that bad. There is a lot of enemies, and if you ignore the camera or get used to it, the gameplay is bearable. There is 3 different ways to level up in Drakengard. There is the character level, that can increase up to level 99, and that dictates how much health we've got, both in the air and on the ground. Kaim only gain experience on ground battles though. Air battles grant experience to the Red Dragon, that increase her damage. The Red Dragon doesn't have a level per se, but can gain experience up to 2 millions, and upgrade her damage along the way. And finally, weapons all start at level 1 to reach up to level 4. Gaining a level with a weapon will grant a longer string of attacks, 1 more gauge of mana per level up, and also improve its magic attack. That's not all. Each weapon have a story that slowly reveals itself as we level it up, very similarly to what you can find in Nier Automata, if you've played that game. Gameplay wise, that's not very useful, but 2 stories are often interesting, well written, and a nice little reward for bothering leveling up all the weapons in the game. And if anyone desires to do that, there is 65 weapons in total in Drakengard, which is an insane number considering all of them have different stats, range, weight, etc. And especially, every single weapon have a different magic ability, which is awesome. I almost forgot, each weapon level also changed a little bit a weapon's appearance, so there really was a lot of work put into them. As this mission comes to an end, we'll fight our way through the last few soldiers and will arrive in time to protect Furiae. We'll slowly start to witness a less pleasant aspect of Kaim's personality. You see, what started as revenge for his parents' death has since then grown into pleasure. Kaim seems to be enjoying killing people. Although he doesn't seem to be killing people randomly, and only kill people that he has a reason to kill. He doesn't go out of his way to slaughter innocent people. We'll then meet 2 new important characters, Lady Furiae, the goddess, and Inuart, her fiancé, which is also Kaim's friend since childhood. They'll witness the loss of Kaim's voice, and his pact with the Red Dragon. After listening to a song from Inuart, we'll head to the elf village, in order to find a new place to keep the goddess safe.
Perhaps we should celebrate. The usual song?
Before going to the elf village, I'll first decide to try an expedition, which is some kind of game mode where you're allowed to replay levels you already finished and grind XP. Sometimes there is also weapons hidden in those levels, and as luck will have it, we just found one. Nothing else will happen there, so let's get back to the story. On our way to the elf village, we have another isometric gameplay part. This time there won't be any fights. The isometric view in Drakengard is also chosen to talk to NPCs, something that happens from time to time and can help knowing a bit more about the world and its characters. In this case, we'll notice a few things. The soldiers are surprised of the Empire's strength, not all experimented, but a few of them are veterans, serving the previous generation already. Is it gonna be useful? I'm not certain, but it's good that it's there. It helps with the world building, and after all, it fits with what the Union is. A group of hundreds of small kingdoms forming an alliance together to fight the Empire and not be eradicated. Not all of them know how to fight, but they all want to resist the Empire. Not everyone here is a soldier by choice. We are not done here yet though. We have 2 other characters to talk to, Furiae and Inuart. Furiae seems to be burdened heavily by the fact that she is the goddess. It seems to be something that she does because people forced it upon her. She feels forced to fulfill her duty, even though she hates it. At least, that's what I think from the little words she says. Upon talking with Inuart, the Red Dragon will tell us that the Empire already attacked the Elf village, and that there might be no survivors at all. And if she knows that, it's not simply because of Ass magic, but it could very well be. Every person with a pact can somehow communicate with other pact bearer or beast, which will be very useful later on. The Red Dragon mentioned that going elsewhere will be wiser, but Inuart doesn't want to believe what is told to him, and call it nonsense. There is no reasoning in Inuart. We are going to the Elf village. While we battle the Empire in the sky, Inuart will say something that leads us to think that he doesn't necessarily like Furiae being the goddess either. Not because he doesn't deem her fit to be a goddess. No, my guess would be because a goddess has to be pure, and spend her days praying to keep the seal in check. Furiae isn't really a divine being per se. She was just chosen to carry one of the 4 seals, in this case, the seal of the goddess. And that is a very difficult and painful task that requires her to basically abandon everything she cherishes in order to pray and maintain the seal that protects the world of Midgar. It is very easy to see why that will bother Inuart. The goddess cannot do sinful acts, or else the seal will possibly be tainted. But that doesn't stop Inuart from loving Furiae. He maybe simply wishes deep inside of him that things will be different and that there will be another way that will allow Furiae to be free, and especially to allow them both to be a normal couple. We finally arrive in the Elf village, and as the Red Dragon said, the elves were already slaughtered by the Empire. Not everything is lost though. The Red Dragon will hear the voice of the Hierarch Verdelet, spiritual leader of the Union that made a pact years earlier with a petrified dragon. Verdelet is in the Desert Temple, and strongly suggests to bring Furiae there in order to protect her. Inuart will lament his lack of strength and ask Furiae for forgiveness. Furiae will then tell Inuart that his songs are calming her, but what Inuart wants is strength. Maybe in order to solve all of Furiae's problems, or maybe in a more selfish way, to stop feeling inferior to Kaim. Inuart always has been worse at fighting compared to Kaim, but does possess an obvious talent for instruments and singing, something that Furiae seems to hold in high regard, as she mentioned that he is able to calm her, but Inuart seems to pay little attention to that, and want to be something that he isn't. Whatever Inuart feels, we'll make the choice to investigate further what happened in the Elf village. We'll leave Furiae to Inuart and let them travel to the Desert Temple on their own. It won't take long for us to find a message written in blood beside an Imperial soldier's body.
Speak not the watchers, draw not the watchers, write not the watchers, sculpt not the watchers, sing not the watchers, call not the watcher's name. What is this?
Soon after that, we find a dying elf. She tells us that the cult of the Watchers has a shrine in the valley, and that they took everyone else there. We are obviously making a link between that cult of the Watchers and the Empire, so we have to investigate further and try to save those elves in order to learn more about it. On our way to the shrine, we'll meet 2 new units that make me question whether or not the developers that made this game had the player's sanity in mind. First of all, we'll meet the red variant of the base units we're facing since the beginning. At first glance, nothing big. They might be a basic color swap. No, they are not. The red variant is immune to magic. Better, every time you send a fireball, you get 1 back. Those fireballs also do a crazy amount of damage. Since the fireball of the dragon are considered magic, those units make it impossible to use the dragon against them without being put midlife, without understanding anything. But you might think, it's all good, just do not use magic or the dragon. But since the beginning of the game, I'm using the fireball to initiate every fight to gain a lead against them. Because units aren't sitting idly watching me murder their friends. They attack, and Fireball was the way to make it without losing any health points. Well, that time is gone. Now, if there is a red unit, forget about using your magic. Luckily, the projectile inside the combo string isn't considered magic, so we can still spam it. Now, obviously, for a game with very little variation of gameplay like Drakengard, because as a reminder, Drakengard has really only 4 commands related to combat. We can do a normal combo string, or decide to break it with a projectile by pressing the magic button at the right time, or simply use magic. And finally, we can mount the red dragon to battle. Well, 2 of those 4 commands are now blocked when we face red enemies, or prepare your butt for a fireball apocalypse. Obviously, it can all be blocked, luckily. And that leads us exactly to the second unit, the mages. Toward the end of that same mission, the devs probably thought that we were having too much fun. So they decided, why not spawn like 30 mages as last objective of that mission? Now, killing the mages themselves isn't exactly hard. They do not do a lot of damage, to be honest, and you can easily parry their fireballs. But we gotta be patient, because they will have absolutely no mercy for our nerves. And when I say our, I mean my nerves. Those mages are all around, and the system to block directly target the closest one. So what happens when you have to block from all 4 directions? Well, let me tell you, it's actually easy. It doesn't work. I even tried to use a dragon to escape that nightmare, but she's 10 times Kaim's size, and these guys are natural born snipers, and probably have waited 20 years for that moment to ruin my day. They were not gonna miss a single shot. There is actually the possibility to roll on either side in Drakengard, which could help, but unfortunately, it doesn't offer us invulnerability frame like recent games tend to do. So, unless you're having the reflex of a wild cheetah, you're done for and might still get hit. The way I did it, taking damage while using the few seconds of invulnerability frame after getting knocked down to go forward and kill them one by one until it was done. These wizards' goal isn't to kill Kaim, as they do relatively low damage. They are simply there to suck the soul out of the player. At least, that's the only explanation that I found. This led to me not being exactly the most enthusiastic about the rest of the game, since I dislike to be overly negative for no reasons, if that qualifies as no reasons to begin with. I'd like to say that there was definitely a skill issue on my end, and that I could have passed this area with less problems if I was willing to take the time. But the lack of fun that I felt during that mission led me to want to end it quickly, which was an obvious mistake, as we all could see. The best of us will probably be able to have fun there. Unfortunately, I'm not one of them. Short after the death of the last wizard, we'll find out that the elves were taken somewhere else. There, the red dragon will notice that the hierarch Verdelet's voice is gone, which is worrying. We might have to hurry to the desert. But only a few seconds after, a survivor of the Fairy Valley will beg us for help. The Empire has taken their village. Kaim will kick away the poor guy and head to the Fairy Valley. Not with the intent of saving people, but to kill more Imperial soldiers. The previous mission with wizards actually can lead to 2 different outcomes. Either we finish that mission in less than 20 minutes and we'll head to the Fairy Valley, or we do not and we simply go to chapter 3 toward the Desert Temple. This isn't the only time such thing will happen in the game, but I wasn't able to trigger anything else blindly. Those different outcomes do not change the story in any way. Whatever happens, we'll go to the Desert Temple next. That optional path's purpose is to lead us to obtain our first companion, Leonard. Leonard usually doesn't really have a role in the story, or at least, he usually doesn't have a role yet, because you see, Drakengard has 5 different endings. In the first 3 endings, no companions will matter, but to obtain the 4th and 5th ending, we need to recruit all 3 of them. And for that, we need to successfully complete the requirements of a different mission for each. For you to understand, you need to know that it is possible to have all the endings on the same save file. Drakengard allows us to replay previous chapters to complete what we've missed. All of this will be way too confusing for you to follow down. So while Leonard was the only character I did unlock when I first played through the story, In this video, we'll try to progress in a linear timeline as much as we can, and therefore, we'll unlock them all pretty soon.
Give us up. Luke Hagen. My brothers, forgive me. Forgive me. What evil have I done? My brothers butchered, our home put to flame. And where was I?
What's this? What's this? You betrayed your brothers! Your sorry, pitiful little brothers! Dead on the ground! What fun! What fun! Yuck! What a painful sight! Look! Look! Looky! Look! What was the last thing they saw? I
No.
wonder.
No, I cannot. I cannot bear to think of it.
Makes you sick? Humans are pathetic! Pathetic! Dirty! Smelly! Might as well just die! Hey, that's it! Kill yourself! Go on! Finish it off, useless human!
But I...
You're scared? Dying is good! You don't want to die? Really? No! What a bore! Seriously, finish yourself off! Oh, hold on! Of course! Let's make a pact!
What do you mean?
You don't get it? Hello? Is that skull as hollow as a helmet? You and me together forever! Loser! Loser! But seriously, let's do it! A pact! Please! Please!
Leonard is a villager of the Fairy Valley, living with his 3 younger brothers. When the Empire attacked, Leonard wasn't home. He was gone in the woods, which led to his 3 younger brothers to be slaughtered by the Empire. Leonard hates himself for that, and feels guilty about it. That annoying fairy will use Leonard's weakness due to the death of his younger siblings to form a pact with him. He paid for that pact with the loss of his sight. Now that Leonard has joined us, we can come back in time to the moment where we see that dead soldiers and all that gibberish about the Watchers on the floor. There, Leonard will have a vision of the Forest of the Seal aflame. The Empire has started its invasion. Leonard being there with us earlier than we met him is indeed some kind of time paradox, and it isn't gonna be the only one. I'll explain toward the end of the video why I do not think it matters much. Now, it will be up to you to see if my explanation is satisfying enough or not. Anyway, all of this wasn't only done for a small change in a cutscene. We now have the choice to head to the Forest of the Seal instead of investigating the Shrine of the Watchers. And that's exactly what we're about to do. Making the choice of going to the Forest of the Seal opened up a new chapter called Leonard's Regret, which is Leonard's own personal chapter. Every companion have one. After a sky battle against the Imperial forces, we arrive in the forest, home to the fairies. As Leonard predicted, the Empire set it aflame. There, the fairy pact partner of Leonard will tease him in different ways, feeding off his torment.
Our forest is burning! Our forest is burning! All because useless humans come tromping over the land! Awful, smelly, awful creatures!
We must do something.
Hark you, hark! Look in the shadows of the trees. The ones hiding away are probably fine. This, that, what, which? The shadows of the trees! Look closely, Leonard! Look closely! Oh, it smells fishy! What will you do? What will you do? Doesn't it feel dangerous? Are you shaking? Over here! Here!
Just young conscripts.
Right! Young soldiers right out of training, gutted like fish!
If the garrison is here, then the prisoners should be too.
Yes, that ferry is insufferable. We'll notice a few young conscripts burning the forest, which hint at the garrison being nearby. Leonard and Kaim have a conflictual view on the matter. Leonard believed that Kaim could talk to these young conscripts and tell them to lay down their sword in order to avoid bloodshed. Kaim obviously cannot talk, but it's easy to guess that, for him, adults or children are the same. They decided to take on a weapon and fight for the Empire. They can very well die for it too. It's true that those conscripts aren't very strong. They clearly are no match for Kaim that slaughtered them by the dozen. Kaim doesn't feel any remorse for that. He probably even enjoy it. The Red Dragon sees it as a necessity. Those are enemies, and they should be slayed. As for the fairy, she's simply enjoying Leonard's torment, and for that, she's even encouraging Kaim to kill even more of them. There is no doubt that this bloodbath is deeply affecting Leonard. Leonard is a kind person, but there is darkness in his heart, and he knows it well. You'd be hard-pressed to find any situation where killing children is something considered morally acceptable. But Kaim isn't only killing children, he is also killing soldiers. Is it wrong to slay them in order to protect other lives? Maybe Leonard is a bit too sensitive on the matter. I do not think it is a situation where we can call anything right or wrong. It is instead either us or them. Leonard's misplaced kindness will soon almost cost him his life.
Hey! What'll you do about the bodies? Stab them again?
I shall give them a burial.
You have time for such luxuries? Well, do you? Do you? Do you?
Please help me. I'm afraid.
Peace now. It is all over.
Oh! Feeling pity for the enemy? Can't start wavering now.
He is just like my brother. His voice.
Leonard, what are you doing?
He is just a child. What?
You fool!
Fool! A masterpiece of a fool!
We are now attacked by a few Wraith, but more importantly, there is a massive army gathering in the sky. We'll have to fend them off and head to the Forest of the Seal. There, we'll meet the King of the Fairies, a pretty despicable person if I might say.
I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Why this wasted pity?
It is just...
He won't say! He'll never say the truth. It's a secret!
It would be better that I die here.
Huh? What did you say? Hello? You couldn't die, could you? Just gave yourself a little nick. So sad. Didn't you make a promise to live with me, big brother? I can't survive alone anymore, you know. A pact. We made a pact. Don't forget.
You are...
My name is of no concern. I simply ask that you smelly savages leave the forest alone. Oh dear. Hold of me. Still, as a leader, one must say what one must say.
the ruler of the fairies.
A human carcass cannot restore a tree that is burned. Trees are the bones of the forest.
Go threaten someone else. We have no time for you.
Oh dear, oh dear. Threats, you say? Such suspicion. Noble dragons think such complicated things. Is there some secret reason why you consort with humans? Or do you play with such lesser beings for fun?
Hold your tongue!
Dearie, oh dearie, how rude! I struck the mark, huh? The desert is a hot place, and bodies do rot quickly.
The desert? What about the desert?
Oops! I let it slip. Those idiot priests are lined up and knocked down one by one. Your friends may not be safe. Serve them right.
Climb to the desert!
You should just let them die. Oh, but I can't say that, can I now?
That discussion won't be all in vain, because the king will tell us that Furiae, Inuart, and the priest in the desert are in grave danger. This is where Leonard's chapter ends. As we travel toward the desert, we'll find Furiae, alone. Verdelais and Inuart were captured by the Empire as they tried to protect Furiae. Our next goal will be to free both of them. We'll find Verdelais first. Now, we need to get him out of his prison. And if you wonder why I'm not talking much about what is happening in the levels, as I usually do with other games, well, it's because there is really nothing to say. I'm killing targets over and over again in great numbers. It takes a lot of time and it's not interesting to talk about. It isn't even interesting to play through, if you want my opinion. As I said earlier, aside from a few things here and there, the gameplay is mostly quite enjoyable. The problem is the level design and the objectives, mostly. The maps are huge and really empty. It takes a long time to travel between one area to the next, and there is so many types of enemies that can ruin your day, such as the red color swap, or the crossbows that can dismount you with ease. Doing the most simple objective will take you minutes of your time, and obviously, to make those take even more time, there is always an ungodly amount of enemies. While the characters of Drakengard are relatively pretty and well made, I find the map to be always grey, ugly, and obviously empty. Those things coupled with a soundtrack that I found amazing, but that I slowly started to like less and less as I was playing the game, because it's not something that is easy to listen for long periods of time, as it's really aggressive and intense, led me to a pretty depressing experience. But I do sincerely believe that it was meant to be this way by the developers, and if it wasn't, then I strongly believe that it is the optimal way to experience the game. It isn't perfect, and has obvious flaws, but you just have to tolerate the misery it inflicts upon you and enjoy it for what it is. Not all the games are made to be fun. It is possible to enjoy something as long as it's interesting, and Drakengard is interesting, even though it isn't fun. Now, back to Verdelais. Our prowess on the battlefield will make it possible to save him, but Inuart is held elsewhere. We'll learn something terrible.
At last. So, you are Caim.
Verdelais, you know something. Tell us, what is happening?
The Empire is not satisfied with mere conquest. They seek complete reconstruction.
Of the world?
Yes. They want the seeds of resurrection that will appear when the seals are broken. The goddess's life is in great danger.
The seeds of resurrection? Humans twist even the myths to their own purposes.
Please help. The Empire must not destroy these holy places. The entire world is in danger. As each seal is broken, the burden on the goddess grows greater still. Please! Even the Empire's soldiers deserve our mercy.
You cannot preach to this one. He cares only for settling old grudges.
May the gods bless us, their poor children.
What difference between he who prays and he who kills. Fools, one and all, these humans.
Verdeley will inform us of the Empire's true ambitions. They seek a complete reconstruction of the world. In order to achieve this, they are willing to destroy the 4 seals that protect the balance of the world, hoping that the seeds of resurrection will appear and that they might be the first to cross them, thus leading humanity to a new era of prosperity. That's what the Empire believe, because the Union, that safekeep the goddess, think the complete opposite. Those seals should never be broken, or the world will turn to chaos. Nobody really knows though, as those seeds of resurrection never appeared in the world at any time in recorded history. But one thing is sure, there is now a war around them, and if the Empire were to win, the goddess will have to die. Outside of the goddess, there is 3 other seals protecting the world's balance. Unfortunately, one of them is soon to be gone, as the elves were the protector of the seal of the forest. Outside of those 2 that we already know, there is also the seal of the ocean and desert. We'll now see what is happening to Inuart.
If only I had more strength.
If only I had more strength, then I could protect Furiae.
Who's there?
I could protect her and make her my own.
Stop it!
Take her in my arms, surrender her to no man, my betrothed. She shall love only me.
Please stop!
All mine, Furiae, all mine, all mine, all mine. No man can have her, no man, not even Kaim.
No! No more!
Loves only me, looks only to me, holds only me. Furiae loves only me, me. Forgive me, deeply, deeply. Please forgive me. Gaze only on me. Please, gaze upon me. The goddess will die. The one who serves as the seal must be killed by the strain. The burden will destroy her.
No.
She is just a normal woman, one who was to lie beside you, laughing and carefree.
If she ceases to be a goddess, can she become a woman again?
For many, many years.
What should I do? I want to help her.
You need strength. Strength that comes from a pact with a dragon.
Kaim could help.
Kaim? Allow him to bathe in her gratitude and love.
She
is my bride. She is my bride. Her kisses are mine alone. Her love is mine alone. If only I had the strength.
If only I had the strength.
That scene is really weird. I have to say that I actually like that cutscene a lot. It actually reminds me of theater play. It's all over the top. It also explains a lot of important plot points and help understand what Drakengard is all about, at least to me. So, we've now learned a few things. First of all, Inuart is a fool, but we could see that from miles away. He's overly jealous and wants Furiae all for himself. Secondly, we also see his eyes turn red toward the end, and that's not because the spirit of Santa took a hold of him. Many soldiers of the Empire had those same red eyes. It's clearly hinting that they are being possessed, or at the very least, influenced by something. Since we have no clues of where Inuart is, and that the Empire is also attacking the Desert Temple, we have no choices but to try to defend the temple against their attacks, and forget about Inuart for now. It was easier to find Verdeley due to his pact that allowed him to speak with the Red Dragon, but Inuart unfortunately doesn't have that luxury. Fighting around the temple, we'll find Inuart's harp, but still no clues on his whereabouts. As the fight progresses, we'll soon fight around the seal itself, against evil wraith that spawn from the ground. Those are naturally attracted toward the seal, and are no allies to us. Drakengard offers a lot of diversity in the enemies we'll be fighting. Ghosts, human soldiers, goblins, orcs, and many more. It's such a shame that a good bunch of those are simply there as another way to torture us. Each new enemy will have us wonder if we're about to have hemorrhoids or not. Luckily, most of them are relatively easy to deal with. Note that I said most of them. The wizard isn't the only unit able to trigger rage screams, as we'll soon find out about another unit that can be quite painful. As we fight on the battlefield, some bonus will appear. Those are linked to the combo system of Drakengard. If we're able to successfully combo up to 15 hits, we'll be rewarded with either a healing orb or an explosion around us if our health points are too high. Reaching a combo of 100 will give us a damage and resistance bonus that will last for a limited amount of time, and that is quite deadly. Obviously, while I didn't really pay attention to when, there are other horse bonus that drop all the way until we reach the 100 combo mark. That combo system is core and necessary to remain alive in later missions, because while comboing in itself isn't really a hard task per se, comboing against the wrong enemies becomes slightly more difficult, if not impossible. There are other ways for us to heal, such as chests hidden on every map. Those chests are filled with a healing orb that restores completely your health points, but we need to find them, so they are more of a luxury. You remember that enemy that I mentioned earlier, on par with the wizards, Rage Scream, all that? Well, that's him, the Imperial Commander. He's like 10 feet tall, and his favorite language is violence, and I have to say that he's pretty good at it. What makes him so disgusting, though, isn't necessarily his size or his obsession for war, but that attack that slices through our health gauge. I use the singular when talking about him, because we're talking about one type of enemy, but that Imperial Commander ain't a boss or anything. It's a unit that we'll see relatively rarely, but that is far from being unique. There are like 6 to kill in a row, in this mission only, and I admit that I will cheese them with the red dragon toward the end, because I could have died. Although, to be frank, I wasn't aware yet that the companions could fight in our stead for a limited time. Before a mission, we can select and equip a companion. In our case, it will be Leonard, as it is the only companion we have anyway. These companions only stay for a limited time and can only be summoned up to 3 times per mission. They have normal attacks and magic just like us, which makes sense, since I can already tell you that all 3 companions have a pact partner. Exciting, isn't it? Obviously, they cannot hide their pact partner like Kaim is able to. Leonard's pact partner is that brat of a fairy, and I doubt she'd carry anything heavier than a mushroom. But if Leonard having a fairy could make him look weak, let me make things clear instantly. Weakness isn't what is unpleasant about him. Leonard, like all the other companions, have a limited time, but can also spam his magic as much as he wants. And since his magic is some kind of homing magic missile that have absolutely no counterplay for the opponent, outside of hoping that we run out of time before they die, that makes him completely broken. Small drawback, Kaim doesn't win experience when Leonard do his one-man show, so I tried to keep it to a minimum and simply use it as our ace in the hole. To the surprise of no one, the seal will be broken due to the unceasing assault of the Empire. We'll decide to come back to the goddess and plan our next move. We'll bring back Inuart's harp to Furiae and tell her that we couldn't find him. This news will be heavy on her. A few seconds later, Verdelais will hear a weak and faint voice coming from a jail in the desert. We'll investigate this.
No matter how much I hear it, I can't avoid that voice.
Is that so? I've grown fond of it, I have.
Long as it's a woman, huh? You're the odd one, liking an elf like that. Have you seen her eyes? Pretty scary if you ask me. Even when she smiles, they're dead.
Me, I feel sorry for her. Better for her if she had died with the rest of her family. Right then, let's go settle her down.
Careful, mate. She'll get you for sure.
That's all right. We're not her type now, are we?
What the?
Oh, bloody hell! The Union! They're attacking!
It is too soon for you to die. Now, you will come with us.
Her name is Ariosh. She made a pact with Undine and Salamander, two elemental spirits. Ariosh is an elf, but that's not the first thing you'll remember when you think about her. You see, Ariosh is kind of unhinged.
You surrendered your womb.
Tell me, are there any children here?
Fear not, they have been evacuated.
So there are none here. A pity. They're so sweet. But an adult will suffice.
Get back, elf!
As Ariosh tries to make Kaim her dinner, Verdelais will be forced to cast a spell to restrain her. We'll end up taking her with us for her own good, and especially for the good of anybody she might cross. She is going to be your second companion. During that time, the Red Dragon will also evolve to level 2, which change its appearance and increase its power. There will eventually be more transformation as we progress, but outside of being more powerful, bigger, and maybe more intimidating, there isn't much to say about those. Moving to the Wastelands, we'll set up a camp and meet an old friend, gone since not so long ago.
Inuart.
With a dragon, that means you have made a pact.
Furiae, come with me. There is nothing to fear. The world will be better now. You need not be the only sacrifice.
He has been broken.
I'm not weak anymore, Kaim. Why are you staring at me like that? I'm strong now. I traded my songs for strength, Kaim. I can protect you now, Furiae. Don't give me that face, Kaim. I can see the scorn in your eyes. You would sacrifice your own sister in the service of revenge! Welcome to a world without song.
Inuart's weak mind has been broken, and he ended up making a pact with another dragon in exchange for his ability to sing, which will be a pretty small price to pay for anybody, but not Inuart. Inuart's songs were something dear to Furiae, but without a second thought, he sacrificed that talent to gain power. Now that Inuart made a pact with a dragon, he became much stronger, strong enough to take on Kaim and kidnap Furiae. That dragon is also no stranger to Kaim. He remembers it very clearly. It was that dragon who killed both his parents years ago. Kaim, Verdelais, and the Red Dragon were all wounded in this fight. We'll wait for everyone to heal before giving chase toward the Imperial lands. As a small reminder, while Leonard and Ariosh are indeed with us, those two are optional characters and therefore don't show up for the first 3 endings or their path. On our way to the Imperial lands, we'll meet the Imperial army, preparing to launch an attack on the Union forces. We'll be tasked by Verdelais to scatter them, to prevent the collapse of our allies. From now on, Verdelais will start talking during missions. Kaim also won't get any better in his sadistic behavior. He gets a kick out of killing people and starts to enjoy it more and more as he keeps doing it. Kaim is also obviously growing stronger each mission. We'll talk about Verdelais later, because while he might be a priest, he isn't a saint. During that mission, we'll face goblins, orcs, trolls, and ogres. After slaughtering them all, the Red Dragon will read the mind of their last surviving leader on its last breath, to know where the Empire hid the goddess. It is indeed highly convenient that the Red Dragon possesses the ability to read minds. We learn that Furiae is held in a fortress, somewhere in Imperial lands. We also learn of a shortcut leading to those Imperial lands that might prove to be useful. Soon enough, a scream from a fairy will be heard, meaning that the seal of the forest has finally been broken. That one held for quite some time, due to the fairies and elves protecting it, but it couldn't last forever. There is now only one seal left, the seal of the goddess. No, I am not forgetting the seal of the ocean. That one was broken earlier, but I decided not to show it until now, because it is a time paradox. Back when we met Verdelais for the first time, after freeing him, if Ariosh is already in our party, which is theoretically impossible, since Verdelais is the one stopping her from chomping on Kaim, Undine and Salamander will tell us that the Desert Temple has already fallen, and we'll have the choice to head to the Ocean Temple instead. This leads to Ariosh's personal chapter. On our way to the Ocean Temple, we'll meet the Imperial Armada. Their sailors cast children in the ocean to drown. I do not know the reason, outside an obvious need for cruelty. We'll sink their entire fleet to prevent more bloodshed, with hopes of saving what's left of the children. Unfortunately for them, they might have escaped a cruel death by drowning that the sailors envisioned, but they couldn't escape Ariosh's hunger.
The children. Ariosh, what have you done?
So sweet. So sweet. The cute little children. No need to worry. I will take care of you. So sweet.
I smell blood. Why? Ariosh, do you not have children yourself?
They were killed. Killed by the Imperial forces and cast away into an ocean of blood.
And there shall be no more children for her.
The price for our pact was her womb. Solitude and chaos for all eternity.
Only with death shall it end. Now, on to the next temple.
Ariosh lost her husband and her children when the Empire invaded the elf village. Since then, she completely lost it, and is now a mere shadow of who she used to be. A cannibalistic shadow with a certain taste for kids, that is. Undine and Salamander made a pact with her to feed on her despair, a bit like Leonard and his fairy, if we forget that the fairy is an annoying little shit, while the elementals are relatively chill to listen to. Combat-wise, Ariosh is simply the most powerful character in the game. Her magic spell is the equivalent of a tactical nuke on the battlefield. Once again, we'll be too late and the seal will be broken before we arrive, and that's it for Ariosh's story. Let's now continue where we left off. We've heard the fairy scream, which means that they met their demise and that the Empire has broken the seal of the forest, which also means that the seal of the goddess is the last one remaining. Before the ogre leader dies, the red dragon will see one more thing, a shortcut through the mountains, leading to the Imperial lands. That path is dangerous and heavily protected, but time isn't our ally. Toward the end of the gorge, we'll find a giant golem. Obviously it's not there to politely welcome us, we'll have to destroy it, and we'll be forced to do so on Dragon's Back, in a very narrow area. That fight isn't anything special, it just feels like having a fight inside a tuna can. Exciting. That golem must be shaking in his boots before such a display of grace and skill. Soon after, we'll meet our third and last companion.
It's all right. It's all right. It will be better soon. No. No. You can't die now. Sere. Oh, Sere. My beautiful child. Oh, I love only you.
Mother? Mother? Are you sleeping? Father won't move. Mother? Mother? I'll kiss you and then you'll wake up. Right? Mother, what is it? What's wrong? Why don't you answer me? Wake up, please, wake up! You loved just me, didn't you? Just me. Only me. Only me. There's no one left in our village. Mother and Father aren't even here.
Golem, it was you who led us here.
We'll go to the place where the cult is? Take me too! They took my sister!
Golem, you made a pact with this child?
Sere alone. Sere small. Here is dangerous. I go too.
I gave all my time to Golem. He said he'd be my friend if I did that.
Do you understand what it means to give away all your time? Others will age and die, but you will never grow, never pass on. You will be alone, a child forever.
I won't be alone. Golem will be with me. Besides, I became the little hero. Do you know that story? My mother used to tell it to me.
More myths. Why are humans so quick to hide from truth in castles made of clouds? Even Golem feels pity. Well then, let us go to the Empire!
Last surviving member of his village, Sere is a child that made a pact with Golem, in exchange of all his time. Ciri cannot age and is forever doomed to stay a child. Like the two previous companions, Ciri also have a personal quest that is linked to a time paradox. We are going to tackle it now, since it's not a very important event. It all takes place just before we kill the ogre leader and get information about the shortcut. Ciri will recognize a valley. It was there that he last saw his sister, accompanied by his mom. Ciri wishes to find her, and pester us to help him with that. Helping Ciri is gonna prove to be very taxing in time, as his personal quest is also the longest out of the three companions, and it isn't even close. He also possesses an evident skill to get himself in dangerous situations, and an even greater one to be completely useless. Ciri's mom always favored him, and lashed out all her anger on his sister. When she took Ciri's sister out into the valley, it was probably not to have a walk, but most certainly to get rid of her. Later on, Ciri will be abducted by a griffin, and taken into the Colosseum to serve as a prize for the winner. We followed that griffin, killed our way through the Colosseum, saved Ciri, and ultimately lost a lot of time, as we won't find his sister anyway. Ciri is probably the weakest out of the three companions, but still remains strong enough to be a huge help. The only problem remains that once you unlock Ariosh, there is no reason to pick anyone else than her. Even better, while our magic triggers a counter-attack from red armored enemies, it doesn't happen with Companion's magic, which makes Ariosh, and to a lesser extent Leonard and Ciri, the best option at clearing those. Now back to where we were. After rescuing Ciri and crossing the mountainous path, the Union forces gather to launch a final attack against the Empire. We went from 100 to 0 real quick there. Obviously, it will be our duty to take care of the Cyclops. Nothing too interesting, just another type of enemy we'll face in the sky. We'll then follow with a grand battle, where we lead our army against the Imperial forces. At least that's the script, because Drakengard doesn't feature the possibility to have allies. I've decided to grind that battle for a while, and knowing what's gonna happen next, I think I did the right choice. We'll win and completely decimate the Empire's forces, but it isn't over yet.
What is it? What's going on? Judgment is at hand!
Massive fireballs were cast on the battlefield from the sky. The Union forces are obliterated, but the battle isn't over yet. Verdelais is slowly losing his composure, afraid that this disaster means that the goddess Furiae is about to be killed. But we have no time to lose. There are still a few enemies to deal with. At first, we'll kill the few remaining soldiers of the Imperial army that escaped death in the battle, and by the fireballs. Then, we'll witness the Imperial forces coming back to life to fight us as undead warriors. Those undead warriors have to be dealt with extreme caution, as they hurt pretty badly. While I needed no retry for this battle, it was tough. I played most of it with very little health points left. I had to summon Leonard to help me, and chase those enemies with the dragon, as they have no way to attack her. Upon completing our objectives, the red dragon will notice something in the sky, a giant flying fortress protected by an army of monsters. Great, the nightmare has just begun. That fortress might be responsible for the fireballs that hit us a few moments earlier, which make it too big of a threat to ignore. Also, the ogre leader mentioned that Furiae was held in a fortress. It would be surprising if it wasn't this one. Flying fortress aren't exactly common things in the universe of Drakengard. To be perfectly clear, there is no other flying fortress than this one, as mankind was never able to construct such thing. All of this raises some obvious questions about the cult of the Watchers and who they really are.
Priestess, let me have Khaim.
Release not the Watchers.
I am strong. I feel love. Love for the Watchers. Love for you. But who are you?
Inuart?
Meanwhile, we fight our way to the floating fortress. Inuart, unable to recognize Furiae anymore, ready himself for a battle against Khaim. That battle that resulted in Khaim's defeat earlier is no longer the same. Khaim grew stronger, while Inuart didn't have that luxury. Gameplay-wise, it is another difficulty spike, where we'll need to thoroughly understand the gameplay and Inuart's weakness in order to win. Inuart has a pretty large health bar that you can see on the left of the screen. Each time we'll send targeted fireballs, he'll dodge them, and it will trigger a counterattack. These counterattacks are no jokes, and really not that easy to dodge, if not impossible at times. Sometimes, Inuart will slow down to cast a powerful attack. During that time, he'll become vulnerable, and we get to strike him. This, honestly, can be a pretty lengthy process. I then learned, a bit later, that while targeted fireballs are ineffective against him, it isn't exactly the same with our manually aimed breath attack that he rarely dodges, and that melts his health bar like snow under the sun. Upon having his health bar drop below 33%, Inuart will retreat back to the fortress, leaving us the possibility to follow him and start our infiltration. We are now closer than ever to our goal. We first have to get rid of the many enemies protecting the fortress, and then of the mini cannons inside its walls. I would be lying if I told you that it plays well. There are walls everywhere, and the cherry on the cake is that last area where targeting the cannons becomes such a chore that it's easier to target them manually. Obviously, those cannons cannot be destroyed with a single shot, or else the game would have been too enjoyable. Moving inside the fortress is like driving a bike in a supermarket. Sometimes it works, but most of the time it doesn't. If you obviously forget that if you were to do that in real life, you most likely will get smacked by a security guard. It's not the case here. The cannons are numerous, but pretty harmless. Our biggest enemy really are those walls and the movement. On the grand scale of things, it's not that horrible either. I don't want you to think that it's unplayable or anything. It's far from it. It's just very clunky, and you'd be hard-pressed to have any fun there. We're finally inside. Time to find Furiae, and to slay more enemies that will inevitably be on our way. While usually the timer for each mission is fixed at 60 minutes, this one has a time limit of only 20 minutes instead, and therefore we must hurry. It is also in this mission that we'll meet the shield-wielding troops. Those blocks our attack and charge us, thus knocking us down. Damage-wise, those units are pretty insignificant. Where they excel though is at slowly pissing me off. For maximum satisfaction, they also are the red variant. I don't have anything nice to say about these. Their sole goal is to suck your soul out by being the biggest piece of shit you can imagine. Later on, we'll eventually try to run faster through the level to reach Furiae. Bad idea. Completely wrong even. Those soldiers have taken lessons in sniping moving targets, and their attacks are auto-targeted. Simply rewatching that part of the level is enough to remind me of the misery it was to play through. The developers were no longer talking about how to make the player have fun there, but about how to make them the most miserable before they can reach their goal. So far, Drakengard isn't that hard, but many decisions make it extremely frustrating to play. I'm not even trying to exaggerate. If anything, I'm even holding myself. I'm currently taking tons of damage because I wish to pass through that level quickly, which is a mistake. That level can be passed by killing those enemies, but it takes much longer. The developers don't want you to take a shortcut. Every mission is lengthy for no reason at all, but they decided it this way. If you're patient and accept what the developers desired the game to be, it won't impact you as much as it did for me. The second floor is much nicer. Here, we'll have to slay the enemies operating the 4 generators, fueling a shield that block our path. We'll then grab a key, leading to the 3rd floor, where Furiae should be held. Obviously, nothing is ever this easy.
Speak not the Watchers, draw not the Watchers, write not the Watchers, sculpt not the Watchers,
Sing not the Watchers. Call not the Watcher's name.
Kaim, has the last seal been broken? Come out now, the seeds are sown. Kaim, be strong! The world itself is in mortal danger! Will you allow your sister's sacrifices to be in vain? Kaim!
We're too late. Furiae is already dead, and the last seal has been broken. While Kaim is deeply affected by this, he cannot linger here, because soon the Seeds of Resurrection might appear on the Earth, and it could mean the end of the world.
What have you done?
I broke the seal. Now she's useless.
The Watchers left.
The Watchers left. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la.
Furiae, but I did it for you. I did it all for you, and yet I could not even sing for you. Was this all for myself? Did I kill you?
La 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 la. La 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 la. The Watchers dance. Such fun.
The Watchers dance. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. The Watchers, they dance.
No more pain. Very high. A miracle. The goddess will live again.
Inuart, now free from mind control, is heading toward the Seeds of Resurrection in order to try his luck at reviving Furiae. Kaim, believing that those seeds are nothing more than evil, is bound to stop him. Second fight against Inuart, almost the exact same as the first one, but this time Inuart won't flee once his health bar reaches 33%. Instead, he'll flee when it will be completely depleted. We don't have time to lose with Inuart for now. We have to deal with the Seeds of Resurrection, and more specifically, Mana, the Grand Priestess of the Empire. As you probably noticed, the Red Dragon reached her third form, which makes her slightly more powerful. We'll need it to fly through the Imperial City, as it's surrounded by monsters from everywhere in the sky. But the worst is yet to come. The Seeds of Resurrection made a worm come out of its lair. The worm, with 4,000 children, is a fearsome beast, an ancient dragon of legends that both Kaim and the Red Dragon seem to fear a whole lot. While the Red Dragon is very much against the idea of fighting an ancient dragon, as it's considered a terrible thing to do among them, Kaim doesn't leave her much choice. Cursing Kaim's foolishness, she relents and prepares to fight one of her kind. Targeted shots are pretty much useless against the worm, due to her unlimited supply of children. Those take her attacks and protect their mother this way. We'll instead need to focus on the worm manually. After taking too much damage, she will switch into a defensive form where all her children surround her to protect her, and especially heal her. That form can easily be broken by attacking her once with any attack. She'll then swap to her third form, a diamond-looking form that will have her move quickly to try to dodge her attacks, while her children are doing the heavy work for her. That form also can be broken quite easily, and once broken, she'll simply come back to her first form, rinse and repeat until she is no more. The worm herself only attacks in her first form, and these can be dodged more or less easily depending on how close to her we are. That boss fight ain't very hard once we learn how to play around her 3 different phases. It's all about being quick enough to kill the worm before we die, because the children won't play nice while we butcher their mom. Upon killing the worm, the Red Dragon and Kaim will grow closer. She never imagined that one day she'd grow that strong, and it's partly thanks to Kaim's thirst for battle. The Red Dragon hated humankind her whole life, but she's beginning to feel something different for Kaim. But no time to dwell on that. Now is the time for vengeance. We'll face Mana and make her pay for what she did. To reach Mana, we'll have to slaughter the Imperial soldiers protecting the temple inside the city. A city ravaged by chaos, where no one could live outside brainwashed soldiers, monsters, and undeads. The door leading to the temple is protected by dozens of their strongest troops. It's not going to be a walk in the park, but by spamming fireballs and summoning Leonard, we'll get rid of them and finally grab the key to enter the temple. Once inside, things aren't going to be as smooth as one could have hoped for. There are many guards left inside to protect the Empire's High Priestess. Many waves of Imperial lackeys will spawn and try to stop Kaim. None will succeed.
Please, I am the Hierarch. This is my duty. Om Galek Nealefre Natila, Om Galek Nealefre Natila, Om Galek Nealefre Natila, Om Galek Nealefre Natila, Om Galek Nealefre Natila.
You still try to live? Pathetic. Pathetic.
Like all the major bosses we fought until now, we'll need to aim manually to fight her. Mana is pretty simple, if I might say. First, she'll spawn a shield that makes her invulnerable, then lower it to send us high-speed targeted missiles. It's at this moment that we'll have to find a way to damage her while dodging what she throws at us, if possible. Now, I said that she's simple, but I didn't say easy, because the difficulty curve has steadily increased since our first fight with Inuart, and it's continuing to rise. Mana isn't an easy boss, but there will be even harder ones soon enough. Upon losing approximately a third of her maximum health points, Mana will enter phase 2. In this phase, she will stop throwing missiles at us, but instead will spawn some sort of moving, ring-shaped waves. Those waves can be pretty difficult to dodge up close, as we can dodge on the side, but there is no button to dodge upward or downward. Instead, we'll have to aim and accelerate to dodge, which is much more dangerous, because first, when we aim to dodge, we do not see what's in front of us. Secondly, we cannot aim to dodge and fire at the same time. And finally, accelerating brings us closer to her, which gives us even less time to prepare for the next dodge. It is actually possible to cheese her by staying under her dress and fire at her. There, we are more or less safe from her attacks, but that's not always an easy thing to do. While this fight is doable, we are slowly entering a field where the gameplay hinders us heavily in what we want to do. Each boss is going to be abusing the fact that we can only dodge horizontally and create as many projectiles as possible that can only be dodged vertically. In more simplistic terms, the game will become harder due to the controls. Now that Mana's health points are lower than 30%, she enters her third phase. Pretty much the same as phase 2, now the projectiles are being sent faster and on diagonal. Obviously, that is much harder to dodge, and it also hurts my eyes like crazy. That's it, we've defeated Mana. Let's now enjoy ending A.
Oh, stupid, all of you! Fleeing the resurrection! The gods are watching. It is their last judgment. We will be transformed. We fear nothing. We are loved. You hate me, don't you? Kill me if you want. Come on, warrior. Kill me. Kill me. Don't hold back. Whoppity whop. Kill little Mana. I don't mind. I am loved. I am loved, you know. See? Mother has to love me. If the gods love me. Kill me. Kill me. If you don't, I'll do something. If you hate me, then kill me. Kill me. Just one big smash. Oh, don't hate me, Mother, please. Please, I'm gonna die, you see? Or you can do it. I don't mind. Kill me. Kill me. I don't mind. Kill me, please.
Time shall never forgive you. You will not die so easily. You will be despised by every soul in this world, unforgiven for all eternity. No. You will suffer under the unbearable weight of your crimes. You are beyond hope.
No, Mother! I'm sorry. I won't do
Who shall become the seal?
We must find a new goddess at once. Another sacrifice to the seal. I am no priest. I am an executioner.
Kaim, I am tired again. Warm me as you did before. Yes, I feel better now. I shall be the seal. No human can match my strength.
But do you know what you offer?
You had best do it before I change my mind.
Galek Nelly Freenatila, Galek Nelly Freenatila, Galek Nelly Freenatila, Galek Nelly Freenatila, Galek Nelly Freenatila.
Angelus. My name is Angelus. You are the first and the last of your kind to know my name. Farewell, full human.
Ye gods, is it your will that we should live on?
Most of you probably guessed it. Mana is indeed Ceres' sister, left all alone in the mountain by their mother that wanted to get rid of her. She ended up surviving with the help of the Watchers. Don't worry, we didn't see the Watchers yet. Ceres was their mother's favorite child, and was treated with a lot of love and affection. For Mana, it was the complete opposite. She was beaten, and everything was always her fault. She made a perfect host for the cult of the Watchers due to that. The kid itself isn't necessarily evil, she is simply possessed. Both Ceres and Mana are from an important bloodline that probably made her the ideal candidate to be the High Priestess, but it isn't mentioned here, so we'll see that in the future games. If Ceres didn't react to Mana here, it's because Ceres only exists in ending 4 and 5. These endings all happen approximately at the same time. Consider each ending as a different timeline, or a possibility if you prefer. In this timeline, Ceres never met with Kaim. This ending leads to Drakengard 2, where Mana will be present. Kaim refused to kill her. Instead, he sentenced her to be blamed by humanity for everything. Kaim and Angelus, we now know her name, develop strong sentiments for each other here. Love? Maybe. I don't know. They definitely were getting close. close enough for Angelus to accept the burden of humankind and become the seal of the goddess that Furiae once was. Upon completion of the ritual, Angelus loses her physical form and vanish. That's the closest to a happy ending we'll get. Now, what if after our second fight with Inuart, we decide to pursue him, instead of going to the Imperial City to face Mana? That's exactly what we're gonna do. Inuart will flee toward the Seeds of Resurrection, sure that he can undo his mistake and bring Furiae back to life. While chasing Inuart, the flying monstrosities living in the Imperial City won't let us pass that easily. On the ground, we've lost sight of him, and have to search everywhere to find him.
It wasn't my fault Furiae died. I'm not responsible. The cult, they fooled me.
What do you intend to do now?
Me? I will bring Furiae back. The seeds will beget a miracle!
Miracles cannot be asked for. It's useless.
You lie! I don't believe you! I am strong enough, aren't I? Aren't I, Kayam? The gods are with me!
Inuart, have you thought of what will become of the world?
As long as Furiae is with me, I don't care. What is a world without Furiae?
A drowning man knows not the ocean's vastness, only its depth.
Leave her. Is that what you want to say? Is that the extent of your love? This time, Kayam, I win!
Now that we've found Inuart, we'll fight once more. Same battle, but this one is much harder than the two previous ones. The balance of power seems to have shifted in our favor. Inuart avoid direct conflict and flee from us at all time, which make it harder for us, since he is much better from far away. We use the same tactic as before. We'll just have to be sharper. Inuart doesn't leave us much time to damage him. He is more nimble than ever, and dodge most of our attacks. Basically, this is a game of cat and mouse that will eventually win, but we won't be quick enough to finish off Inuart before he slips away once again.
Furiae, you have returned to me.
Inuart really is a fool. We must now repair all the wrong he has done. His plan to bring Furiae back to life more or less succeeded. I just doubt that he had any idea that she would come back as a monster with angel wings, whatever that thing is. He also probably had no idea that she would kill him, but by the look in his eyes, I doubt that any of that mattered to him anyway. We are now left with that monstrosity to fight. I'll be honest with you, Furiae is easily one of the hardest boss in the game, while the Worm, Mana, or even Inuart were by no stretch of the imagination bosses I'd call easy. Furiae is something else. We'll be busy the entire fight running after her to have a chance at smoking her behind, while she throws sonic booms at us. If we ever get too close to her, she'll quickly fly away. Forget about our locked missile here, they simply do not do enough damage. I think it is due to her having invulnerability frames after each hit. I also might have forgotten to mention something, but our plain fireballs do more damage if we're close to the target, something that won't happen here. Every 30 seconds or so, she'll summon blades all around her, while shielding herself from any damage. We'll quickly need to target every single blade to destroy them. Failure to do so will lead to her throwing them at us. Saying that she throws them quickly is an understatement. Luckily, we can see every projectile on the map. Too bad, if somebody talks, it hides the map. Worse, Angelus and Verdelais are real chatterboxes. I'll be honest, I did beat her by lowering the difficulty to easy, and continued onward with that difficulty setting. The difference between normal and easy is astounding. I went from barely being able to lower her health to 50% to beating her on my first try without any hardship. You can see for yourself.
The seeds never were, and mankind remains unforgiven.
The seeds of resurrection were nothing but a myth. In the end, these seeds had nothing good in them. Upon killing Furiae, we noticed that many monsters hatch from every other seed scattered around. Are they clones of Furiae, or simply monsters similar to her? I do not know. Maybe Furiae was the first to enter a seed and ended up serving as a prototype for everything coming out of the others. That question isn't really answered in the game. It is heavily hinted that humanity met its end on that day and that these creatures exterminated everyone. Now, we'll come back to our third battle against Inuart. This time, we'll be quicker, and he won't have the time to flee. What awaits him in that fight is death. Furiae won't be reborn.
Kain, please, let me die, together with Furiae. I beg of you. Can this be happiness?
A human is at the altar. It must be she, at last.
Almost. Not much longer. Dragons. Tools of the gods. My servant.
Angelus reached her chaos form. which is her ultimate form. But we won't have the time to benefit from it directly, quite the contrary, because she will be our opponent there.
My brethren devoured her. A human priestess's untruths cannot warp a dragon's mind. You humans do not know why we dragons came to be. A baby smiles in the bath. It wants to stay in the water, but the seasons must change. Kaim, our pact ends here. Powers greater than we have baited us to battle. What we desire no longer matters. Kaim, your life burns too bright. You have come too far. And now, I must destroy you. Forgive me.
This is the only boss fight in the game that will be fought on the ground, and while the ground gameplay isn't the best, it also offers more possibilities, although some of them, such as the companions, aren't available in this fight. We can still decide which weapon we desire to use though. Angelus can only be hit on the face, and has long invulnerability frames each time she takes damage, which makes for a long fight. That's not all. Angelus is also remarkably tanky, and does a lot of damage, considering that I fought her in easy mode and she almost killed me. Every few seconds, she'll fly to the opposite side of the room and throw some fireballs at us. She'll eventually start to use more dangerous attacks as she loses health, such as breathing flame in a corner in front of her, leaving balls of energy on the ground that randomly move in the room, and finally some kind of meteor shower. Now, I do think that this boss is easier than Furiae, and that I simply lost a lot of health points because I was mashing my way to victory. I simply needed to be patient and back down after each hit to dodge what was incoming, but I didn't. This room also features at least one chest with an orb to replenish fully your health. I do think there are two, but I'm not certain. One last hit and Angelus is gone.
Become strong.
Upon slaying Angelus, we see Kaim destroying the Seed of Destruction. We'll call them like that now, since we know what they are. Then run towards the light. What awaits him? Most likely death, as millions of dragons are waiting outside to begin the annihilation of mankind. All of this isn't really clear though, and without a bit more information that the game doesn't offer us, it isn't really possible to understand everything. We still haven't seen the Watchers, but the dragons were created by the gods themselves, alongside the Watchers. Dragons are a prideful race, and rarely show up in front of humans. Not by fear, but simply because they usually do not care about them. That's why we saw only Angelus, Legna, and the Worm as memorable dragons in this game. Legna being the name of Inuar's dragon, outside of Angelus, that had some hatred for humans and nearly ended up being killed because of it. Legna is a black dragon, and is apparently like human flesh. Lovely. Every other dragon we'll meet in our sky battles will be black like Legna, but also much less powerful and easier to slay. Angelus is called Angel in the Japanese version, and if you flip her name, you get Legna. It's not like it's anything particularly important to know, but I didn't see a reason not to mention it. So back to the ending. Upon killing Inuart and preventing him from resurrecting Furiae, we head toward Mana to finish the job. Sadly, we lost a lot of time there, and the gods order the dragons at last to stop playing around and do what they are ordered to do: eradicate humankind. In this cutscene, Mana called the dragons tools of the gods, which is true. Dragons and Watchers are both servants of the gods in this universe. Watchers are even called angels in the Japanese version, which should help you see what they are. I guess being called an angel in the Drakengard universe is the same as being born as John Smith in our current days. As for why Mana is being eaten, it is simple. The order given is to eradicate humankind. Brainwashed or not, Mana is still human. She also played her part, but is no longer required for the rest of the plan. Angelus turning her back against Kaim is just part of that. She has been told, like all the dragons, that humankind was to be erased, and that order left her no choice. As for why the pact could be broken that easily, maybe it is simply due to both Kaim and Angelus becoming extremely strong. It's not really explained. Now, all of this could raise the question, if the dragons were a threat all along, why did they decide to act so late? The dragons usually do not really listen to orders from the gods, and mostly do their own stuff. It is unknown why this time, in this ending, they decided to obey and destroy mankind. Maybe just to make a tragic ending? Most likely. It's maybe a bit late to say that, but I couldn't say it before. Do not take Drakengard as a typical medieval fantasy world, because a lot of things simply do not make any sense if you think this way. I can tell you a few. The Empire is simply so much stronger than anything else on the continent that they can attack multiple important areas and divide their troops, while the Union is using all of their men to protect the castle of the goddess, and still fail to do it. In no world, the Empire wouldn't control any other area with such a gigantic army. It's not even possible, and I'm not even talking about the dragons, Cyclops, and all that crap they have at hands. Even without the red sickness that brainwashed them and make them stronger, the Union wouldn't stand a chance. Believing that they leave others in peace due to kindness of heart isn't logical. We're talking about humans there. No emperor or government would leave territories like these alone, if they are within their reach. But in Drakengard, it is hinted that the reason for the war is the red sickness, caused by the cult of the Watchers and their High Priestess Mana. It is implied that everybody in the Empire is brainwashed, even the Emperor and its politicians, that we never hear about. Judging by the size of their armies, it is quite impressive to see that the sickness was able to brainwash such a gigantic empire. But what's even more impressive is that the Union didn't get hit by that same sickness. None of them. It's almost as if the Union was simply made to face an unbeatable opponent, and that each time they have the upper hand, things will turn out to become even worse for them. Drakengard isn't meant to have a realistic world where everything makes sense, but to showcase the struggle of humankind against an enemy that they cannot beat. The gods want humankind to be eradicated. Why? Nobody knows why. They simply desire it, and humans have to deal with it. Drakengard is all about tragedy, the reasons why odds are so stacked against them, and why things always go for the worst, do not necessarily need an explanation. To me, it often felt like theater play. That cutscene where Mana and Inuart are talking really remind me of that. It is exaggerated to emphasize on Inuart's struggle to deal with his fears. Drakengard is a tragedy that happened to take place in a medieval fantasy setting, and that's the reason why some things do not make sense, because it is a tragedy first and foremost. This is maybe why it is widely considered as dark fantasy and not medieval fantasy to begin with. It could also be said that maybe, since it's the first game of the license, they didn't expect to have the possibility to expand on it, and therefore did the best they could and didn't think much further than this. Pick the one you prefer. Drakengard is also trying to depict characters with peculiar personalities or interests more in depth than the usual games do, hence the Dark Fantasy tag. And since we're done with the first 3 endings, we're now finally reaching the most interesting part. We know a lot about Kaim, Angelus, and Inuart, but the others didn't have the spotlight yet. As with the previous endings, we'll come back in time, this time slightly after reading the mind of the Ogre leader, before heading to the Flying Fortress. This time, our companions will help us. We'll head to the Ocean Fortress, guided by Leonard, who felt the presence of the goddess there. The Ocean Fortress is heavily protected. There is a whole armada, Imperial dragons, and a barrier maintained by a few towers to protect it. All of this would have been a huge problem before, but by now, Kaim and Angelus are strong enough to deal with any of this without breaking a sweat. Next level is another one of these levels that we'll have to hurry through to reach the objective. But this time, Ariosh is with us, and nobody can stop Ariosh from going forward. Upon reaching the last room, Furiae won't be there, but we'll find a space bridge connecting the Ocean Fortress to the Sky Fortress. Although dangerous, Kaim and his companions won't hesitate a second to cross it. Here again, we'll fight our way through the Sky Fortress with hopes of finding Furiae before the worst happens. In this level, scenaristically, Leonard and Kaim are the ones taking the space bridge, and they will end up being separated. The reason why the other two aren't included, even though they still can be summoned to help us, is maybe due to one being a child and the other being borderline insane. Leonard is also overall the most useful companion story-wise, as while he's far from perfect, he still have all his head and isn't dead set on eating children or making us lose time. So, while we do only see Kaim and Leonard here, the story also includes the other two. I just think they aren't shown here because of how little they are able to do. We'll eventually find Furiae alive.
Don't think of me as a traitor, Kaim. We are creating a new world. A world where Furiae lives. Open your eyes. Hear what our priestess says. We can survive.
Inuart, you mustn't stay here. Please go away now.
The Watchers do not laugh. The Watchers must not wake. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. I'm just a girl, a normal girl. What's this?
This dirt! No, don't. Forget the seal and help me! Forget the seal and help me!
Stupid man. Please help me. Help me. Please. Hold me, my brother.
Stop it.
I can see into your heart.
No, that's not true. You lie. I hate you. I hate you. Filth!
This world needs destroying. I'm dirty. I'm dirty. I'm no goddess.
I renounce it. Please. Please, my brother. So, you failed at playing goddess. Now what?
Look at me.
the Watchers laugh too?
Furiae is now dead, again. Her actions might not make sense to everyone. Let me explain why she did do that. Furiae was chosen to be the goddess, and didn't really have a word to say about that. She tried to do the best she could, and to be completely honest, she wasn't bad at it. Being the goddess meant that she was condemned to pray in a castle all day to keep the seal in check. Her life wasn't hers anymore. She lived that way so everybody else can be safe. Her feelings didn't matter. Everybody painted her as a goddess. She felt that if she was to fail or stray away from that image, then everybody would simply hate her. Furiae was loved by everyone for being someone that she wasn't. Deep inside her heart, she wished things would be different. She ended up repressing every single one of her feelings, calling them dirty, because if she was to talk about them, she would end up being hated for not being that pure being that everyone thought she was. Things as simple as wanting to be close to someone were forbidden to her. So what would people think about her lust for her own brother? Unfortunately for Furiae, Mana was able to read her mind, and ended up knowing about everything, which led Furiae to do what she did. In every single endings, Furiae is the one responsible for her own death, because as Mana told us earlier, the burden has to destroy the goddess. Mana cannot kill the goddess by herself for the seal to be destroyed. The goddess has to do the deed herself. For that, Mana decided to use Furiae's greatest shame against her lust for her brother. We can guess by the cutscene that Kaim didn't seem to be particularly ready for such news. By his reaction, I would say that these feelings aren't mutual, but depending on the timeline or dimension, maybe it varies. Drakengard is famous for that. Since Kaim couldn't talk, Leonard was separated from him earlier, and Angelus nowhere near to help him communicate. He was left powerless before his sister's shame, which all ended in tragedy once again. In a Drakengard spin-off called Shi ni Itaru Aka, we could even witness Furiae pleasuring herself while Kaim was training outside. And while it is a different timeline than this one, it also helps us understand better Furiae as a character. We also realize all the irony of Inuart wanting to save Furiae. Inuart never really got to know her. All Inuart ever loved was the goddess Furiae, which was nothing else than an illusion that she was playing because she had no other choices. I do not think that Furiae disliked Inuart. She simply was torn between doing what she was told, so everyone could be happy, and afraid that if she was to do what she truly wanted, she'd be hated for it, even by Kaim. So it is no surprise that it wasn't that hard for her to die when her secret was revealed or bound to be revealed by Mana. That particular scene has 3 different outcomes. I've told you the most interesting one in depth. Another one will be that we take too long to slay the enemies around the Ocean Fortress, and that reinforcements arrive. We will be too late, and the goddess will be dead and gone, while the seeds of destruction will flood the earth. Now let's see the third different outcome, which is slightly better hidden than the 2 others. We'll come back to the Sky Fortress right after taking the space bridge. Leonard and Kaim will be separated once more, but this time we'll find Mana before she can reach Furiae. We'll corner her and let her brother do the talking.
The Watchers, they sing. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la.
Stop it! Don't hurt her! Leave my sister alone! No! Golem, stop! You don't understand! Mana is my sister! It's my fault that she became like this! Mother! Be strong, Mana! Mother, she's already dead.
La 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 la. Don't miss the Watchers. La 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 la. Silence. You cannot kill me. I am loved. Loved by them more than anyone else. See? Humans still don't know what they really need. Stupid.
They're all stupid. Salvation lies before them. But stupid people won't be loved.
La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Those who aren't loved die.
If Suri dies, me sad.
Forgive me. Forgive me, Mana. Golem, please, help.
Now is the time to feel the love of the gods. A deep love. A great love.
A love powerful and formidable. A love that crushes like a mace. La 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 la.
What is it? What's happening? Can that child truly be a god?
Cere, deciding that he cannot do anything anymore for Mana, decides to order Golem to kill her, which is kind of tragic, because Mana was only ever the monster her mother made her be. Worse, her brother, who their mom always favored, is the one that gave the order. Now, in all honesty, I do not entirely know if saving Mana was a possibility. The world is about to end, she's the avatar of some powerful deities, and Cere's attempt wasn't very convincing. All that was left was to get rid of her and hope for the best, but the best won't happen. In fact, the Watchers are extremely pissed off about what just happened. They are now convinced that it is time to act. They could have done the same when the dragons decided to eat Mana, but they do not really care about her. They simply want to screw over humanity badly.
Furiae! Furiae!
Inuart.
The gods are dead, Furiae. No more gods! We are free! It's all right. All is well now. Have no fear. There is a way.
What will you do?
Furiae, we will give birth to the world. Though paradise is lost, we shall be gods!
Furiae is alive. She will simply follow what she's being told, like she did her whole life. As for Inuart, he will go on and make pretty bold claims that we won't be able to verify, as there is no sequel to that ending. Angelus, once again, reach her chaos form, will set off to the sky and start hunting these Watchers. Weirdly enough, they aren't that difficult to slay individually. It is their sheer numbers that make them dangerous. We'll then continue fighting on the ground. Our goal is simple. Kaim and his companions might be a band of freaks and murderers, they still might be the only ones able to save the world. In times of peace, they will be unhinged criminals at best. In times of war, they are heroes.
become one, my beautiful children.
Arios! What are you doing?
The greatest of feasts.
They're devouring Arios!
All has become chaos. We have descended into hell.
Stop your slithering. The way is clear. Run for your life.
Wait!
You know it's the only way to clear a path. Go now. I shall stay.
No! I don't want you to go. Why can't you come with us? Why? Leonard, I don't want anyone else to die.
Sere, you are a fine young lad. You mustn't be afraid. I will not die. Now go, please.
Hey, stupid! What do you think you're doing? You'll get me killed too! And if you die, you won't see Sere anymore! Please, Leonard, live! Don't sacrifice yourself! Please! Please! Oh, stop! Let me go! Oh, you're too scared to die, right? Hey, you bastard! No! No! No!
Death need not be the end of hope!
Ariosh stayed true to herself until the end. Since Watchers just looked like huge babies, she couldn't resist trying to eat them all, but they got the better of her. In the end, Ariosh was the one that ended up devoured. Leonard did what he couldn't do at first, but this time he did it in order to save Sere and give us a chance to save the world. He also got rid of that annoying fairy, so that's another good thing he did. It's not exactly easy to always read between the lines with Leonard, but if you pay close enough attention to him and his story, then you'll realize that he actually have a thing for children, especially young males. Leonard was jacking it off in the woods when his 3 little brothers were killed, finally giving in to his lust. Leonard feels a great deal of shame about this, enough to have attempted to end his life. While it heavily differs from a timeline to the next, it is hinted that the Leonard we know never acted on this, and therefore didn't hurt a child. All of this makes Leonard a character that might disgust many people due to his nature, but it also paints a character that fought his whole life to make sure that he never hurt anybody else, going as far as sacrificing his life in the end for the greater good. There is no doubt that out of our party, he is the most deserving to be called a hero, but one should not be blinded by the fact that while Leonard is heroic, he also carries his part of darkness. Verdeley, while a high ranking of the church, is a very superficial man. He made a pact with a petrified dragon for the sole purpose of becoming powerful enough to climb through the church ranking. The price he paid for the pact was the loss of his heirs. For someone of such high rank, he most of the time doesn't know anything of value, and is often more afraid for his own safety than for others. Don't get me wrong, Verdeley isn't the worst. He simply is a coward that seeks to survive all of this mess, ready to abandon all principle if needed.
The world will be swallowed. What is that? What warps the great time?
The heat! My body is burning!
A reaction? To what? To that?
The child lost his time. Yes, it is possible. The great time. Perhaps our last chance.
Oh, help us! Please help us! No, I don't want to die! No!
Goodbye. Will you take me there?
Are you sure?
I understand. That thing controls time. We can't just leave it or else...
Suri, what will you do?
Only I can stop it. I'm the only one who has what we need.
If you fight that, do you know what will become of you?
A long time ago, there was a brave warrior who drank up all of time, drop by drop. He slept deep beneath the earth, forever young and strong. But then the world became bathed in blood, and the hero awoke. Now is my time, he said. The hero who had drunk of time traveled to the ends of the earth. The hero grew old and weak, and he died. But his time gave the world a new life, the end. It's called The Little Hero. My mother told it to me.
The heroes of the stories are the hopes of the tellers. The hero is in you, too.
I'm so happy. Come on, fly me there.
Can we make it through?
It's impossible! Impossible! What can one child do?
And now, finally, the Queen Beast appears. She is the leader of the Watchers, and therefore, our target. We will have to reach her for Ciri's plan to function. That ending doesn't feature any boss. We'll simply have to speed our way through the Watchers while trying to remain alive. Ciri will do the rest.
Will you forgive me now, Mana?
The Queen Beast, Mother Angel, head of the Watchers, or whatever you wish to call that creature, is trying to end the world by warping space and time. Cere, who had his time taken away from him due to his pact with Golem, will decide to break it when in contact with the Queen Beast, in order to seal her, thus becoming the little hero of legends and saving the world. Unfortunately, Cere will also end up frozen in time with her, which means eternal solitude awaits him. Angelus and Kaim won't be much more lucky, as the Watchers will make sure that they die short after helping Cere reach his objective. In the end, Cere will accept to pay a hefty price for all the torments that their mother inflicted on Mana. His sacrifice is his way to apologize for not being able to save her. Maybe Leonard isn't the most heroic character in our party after all. There is one ending left, but before that we need to collect all 65 weapons. Yeah, this is the pre-requirement to be able to see the last ending of the game. Pretty grindy stuff. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't feel like grinding for all the weapons, so instead I simply downloaded a save that had them all already. Weapons in Drakengard can be found on specific maps. Some require to beat the map quickly, some others do not play on easy mode, sometimes it is even more complicated than that. There are no informations in-game on how to get them, so a guide is mandatory. One thing is certain though, obtaining all the weapons in Drakengard is mostly busywork, very similarly to what early Dynasty Warriors did. Upon collecting all of them, we'll unlock the path leading to the last ending of the game.
It's the end! The end!
And yet you do not pray.
To whom? What god can help us now?
No gods have ever heard your prayers. To catch the lion's cub, you must enter the lion's den.
No, Kaim! Don't go! Please don't leave me alone!
We will meet again, if we live.
But at least... don't forget me! Ever!
Time lives hand in hand with good and evil. We too must adapt to this world of chaos.
Is this the land of the gods?
Upon clashing with the Queen Beast, both Kaim and her end up falling into another dimension. The battle will rage on in modern-day Tokyo. You probably remember that I talked about 4 different types of gameplay at the beginning of the video. Until now, we've seen 3 of them. Grounded, similar to Dynasty Warriors 2, isometric, similar to a hack and slash, and mounted on Angelus, similar to Panzer Dragoon. Now, for the final boss, we'll discover the last remaining one. A rhythm game, and not an easy one at that. Difficulty options won't help us there. That boss battle simply isn't affected by it. Our goal is simple: survive until the timer reaches 0. For that, we'll need to counter the Queen Beast rings with our own rings, of the same colors. There is 2 colors, white when I press square, black when I press triangle. Easy enough, right? For the most part, yes. Most of the song is pretty straightforward. Things become serious when the timer finally reaches 40 seconds. There it will slowly start to be hell on earth. See for yourself. I can tell you that it is even harder than it looks like, and I believe I can explain to you a few things that will help you see why. First thing, music is only ever produced by having rings clash, therefore we cannot count on it to make things easier for us. It's all about our eyes on that one. Secondly, making a mistake like having a black ring hit a white one will stun us for a short time and destroy all the other rings with sand, thus making us in a pretty bad situation early on, or simply being a death sentence when reaching under 40 seconds left. With that in mind, you might think that writing everything on paper and spamming the right button in the right order will work to pass the very last phase. That's what I actually tried, and I will tell you why it doesn't work. While the Queen Beast is going honey badger on us with the amount of rings she sends, we in fact cannot have more than 4 rings on the screen at any time, which make a strategy based on mindlessly spamming the buttons in the right order impossible. We need to watch the screen while playing, and we need to be able to get a hold of a rhythm fast enough to clear what the Queen Beast sends at us, while not going too fast to avoid skipping a button due to reaching the limit of rings we can have on screen. This is actually really hard and takes a lot of practice to get right, but there is a way to cheese it. It is possible to press the pause button to think about what buttons we'll have to press next, and therefore making it much easier on us. With this method, I was actually able to beat the boss and see the ending.
This is Bravo 1. Unidentified target has been neutralized. Over and out.
The Queen Beast meets her demise at the hands of Kaim, but Kaim and Angelus won't celebrate for long. A few seconds later, 2 fighter jets will shoot them down. This ending was some sort of joke ending. That's why many things aren't explained, such as how Kaim, Angelus, and the Queen Beast end up in Tokyo through a dimensional shift to begin with. Yoko Taro apparently wanted at first to make that fight a singing contest against a giant Ayumi Hamasaki, a pop idol that was at her peak 20 years ago. But that idea was immediately declined, so they went with the Queen Beast instead. Now the most interesting part of that ending is that these events led to the creation of the Nier timeline. The giant and the dragon in Nier lore are no one else than the Queen Beast and Angelus. To make it short, the Queen Beast's remains led to a new sickness plaguing humanity. It ended up being called the White Chlorination Syndrome. That sickness spreads via airborne transmission and ultimately forces its victim to make a choice when reaching the final stage of the disease. Either a pact with a god from another dimension, most likely the twisted one that we've had to deal with in Drakengard, or death. People deciding to accept the pact end up becoming servants of that god, void of free will, attacking other humans and spreading the sickness to their victims. It's all more complicated than this, but we'll talk about it when we'll talk about Nier. Now back to Drakengard. Completing the ending E will also grant us a new transformation for Angelus, the fighter jet. Obviously, it is very powerful, but can only be used in free expeditions and not in story mode. By the time the fighter jet is unlocked, most people will have seen everything there is to see in Drakengard, and therefore won't be playing for much longer. It still remains a cool reward for those that finish the game and put in the time to do everything, but it doesn't go much further than that. Drakengard pictures the tragedy of how humankind, facing a foe they can never vanquish, is about to face its demise. More than the tragedy, Drakengard is a story about twisted human beings. It depicts morally grey characters that nobody would dare to talk about. None of them is truly a good person. Some of them became this way due to the world they live in, others are simply born that way. Everyone is a different shade of grey. Yet, they all feel human, sometimes in the worst ways.